Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back here to the launch pad for our second of two launches back-to-back. We are now counting down 26 minutes and counting to the liftoff of the 59th Electron mission from New Zealand. The 59th Electron mission ever. This one's from New Zealand. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad Network, and here at TOP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you joining us here. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button. It's free to do and really does help us out. And let us know in the chat where you're watching from. We got people tuning in all over the world. We got Magnum from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Princess is in Canada. We got Christopher in Cleveland, Ohio. Flight Pass, Toasty Joe are from the UK. We got Constance in Vermont. Julius, I think, is in Florida. Tom is in North Carolina. Fran is in Houston, Texas. It's great having so many of you tuning in. I see Southern California, Wichita, Colorado, East Texas, Germany, Washington, New York. It's great having you all tuning in here today. Today's mission is IoT for you and me. This is the fourth of 5 missions with RocketLab for the French Kineis IoT constellation, which will have 25 nano satellites on board today. Our satellites 16 through 20 set to launch to low Earth orbit. As I said, this is the 59th Electron mission and the 59th mission for RocketLab. Hopefully, we will soon see that change to not only include Electron launches, but Neutron, as they're getting ready to bring that online in the next couple of years. This is RocketLab's first mission of 2025 and the 28th orbital launch attempt of 2025 of any launch provider around the world. Now, as always, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad. We'll work on answering those live while we continue through today's broadcast as well. We know there's always lots of questions that you guys have, and we're glad to answer those to the best of our ability as we can throughout the broadcast. We will, of course, tune in to RocketLab Mission Control once they begin their live broadcast in the next few minutes. We're expecting that to pick up here. We did want to make note, we've been pushing it out through all of our social medias. We've got it pinned in the chat as well. I'm super excited that we're talking, about rocket launches. We're looking at going back to the moon and then on to Mars. We are super excited that we're actually sending up our own payload to the moon, Lunex 1. This is a mission payload that we are sending a memory card that's filled with your guys' names, photos, videos that you've sent in. And we'd love for you guys to make sure that you've signed up for that. We're approaching the deadline on when we have to lock everything down and send it in to be prepared for launch. We just announced this morning that we are flying on the Griffin lander, which is launching later this year on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket. And this morning also released a first look at our Lunex 1 mission patch. We do have some of the launch gear now available over on the shop as well. We are working to get mission patches in a little bit closer to the launch as well, and all of that's limited edition stuff, so definitely check it out. It's free to send your name. If you want to send a photo or video, you can upgrade your payload for just a couple of dollars. It helps us offset the cost of sending this there, and we're super excited to fly with Astrobotic and Moonbox to the lunar surface and what will hopefully be the first of many missions we maybe do. It'd be amazing to do a Mars X one day. We'll have to wait and see. But we're excited to, just have this fun way of opening access to space and to the moon to get kids excited, any age excited. So definitely check that out. We've got about a week and a half left that you guys can submit those names and photos. So definitely share that out with your friends and family or your schools. And make sure you've submitted your name before that deadline. And then, of course, join us for full launch coverage of Lunex 1. We'll be doing kind of a bigger broadcast for that, and we're super excited that. So make sure to check that out. RocketLab still isn't live yet, so don't worry, we're not missing anything. But we're excited to be here live for what is the 59th Electron mission from any of their 3 launch sites. They have 2 launch sites in New Zealand, 1 in the United States, though we don't see it launch too often yet. I see lots of people just jumping in. Apollo's in Indiana, Lightning's in Poland. We got Toast in Alabama. Tim's in Montgomery, Alabama as well. We see Texas, Washington State with Gary. David's in New Zealand. New Jersey, Pizza is in New Jersey. Gary's in Ocala, Florida. We got Madison, Wisconsin with Mike and Lisa. I see Tennessee, Ukraine, Netherlands, Southern California, Vermont, Kingston, Georgia. It's great having you all tuning in here today. As always, if you guys have questions, send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. Catching up here. Joanne, I'm trying to send my name to the moon. The U.S. is not in the country selection. Let me double check that. It should be. We've had other people do it, but let me double check. It might be either at the very top of the selection. Yeah, if it's at the very, very top. So it defaults when you click it to the U.S. and then everyone else. I see how that can be confusing, though. My apologies on that. But yeah, just at the top of that list, you should be able to click the United States, and you'll be all set there. Thanks for sending that in, though. Glad we can figure that out. Hard gun, I hope someone would be flying. I'm guessing that's your birthday? Oh, the musical reference. I didn't get that reference either. I apologize. Treasure, RocketLab is a New Zealand company, not a U.S. company. Sort of correct, sort of not correct. So RocketLab is actually a United States company, meaning they do require FAA launch licenses to launch. They do launch from New Zealand and the United States, but even when they launch from New Zealand, they do still require a United States FAA launch license as well as a New Zealand launch license. So they do have a operation set up in New Zealand at a few different locations, but they are technically founded in the United States, and that is where they are based. Even though most of their operations have been out of New Zealand up until the last year or so, year and a half, where they've started expanding here in the United States with Electron, and then soon to be Neutron as well. So half true, half not true-ish. It's a really interesting situation. They're kind of one of the first we've seen set up in that way. But they want to be a U.S. company so they can do the U.S. military contracts, which you can only do if you're a U.S. entity. So they did that first, and then they now go internationally as well. So that is why we're looking at that. As you can see, RocketLab's getting spooled up, and you can we'll be listening into RocketLab Mission Control here in just a moment. If you haven't yet, though, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us. We're roughly about 18 and a half minutes to launch. We'll sync our countdown clock with RocketLab here in just a second, and we're glad to have you here. Paul Patra, $20 super chat. Thank you so much. Zach, can you put my name on the moon launch, please? You just have to go to the link that's pinned, and then you can submit it there yourself. That gets you a passenger number and gets you into the system for doing that. So yeah, just do that link. But I really appreciate your super chat. You support like every stream, and it's amazing. You're a big reason why we can expand things. So thank you to you and all of our members that help support us and expand our coverage. Let's listen in to RocketLab Mission Control.
Our Electron rocket stands tall on Pad A at Launch Complex 1 in Māhia, New Zealand. We are preparing for liftoff at 9:43 a.m. local time or 20:43 UTC. Welcome to launch day for our next Kineis mission, IoT for you and me. My name is Sam Peters.
And I'm Matt here, and we'll be sharing live updates with you as we go to space once again in just over 18 minutes from now. After a record-breaking year in 2024, we launched a total of 16 Electron and HASTE missions. Today's launch is the first of 2025, and it kicks off our busiest launch manifest yet.
Today's mission is our 59th launch overall and our 4th for the team at Kineis, an Internet of Things constellation operator based in France. We have been Kineis' exclusive launch provider to date and have completed 3 successful missions for them last year, deploying 5 satellites per Electron launch. Today, another 5 satellites will join those already in orbit. Now, today's launch is the 4th of 5 we have booked for Kineis to deploy their entire constellation. The first 3 missions were launched in June, September, and November 2024. Each of these missions lifted off from LC-1 in Māhia on board an Electron launch vehicle. Across the 3 missions to date, we've deployed 15 Kineis satellites to orbit, and like all Electron missions, each launch received a unique name. The team at Kineis have had a lot of fun with their mission names so far, drawing inspiration from the objective of their constellation, which enables both IoT and AIS, or Automatic Identification System. They've aptly named their missions to date No Time to Lose, in a nod to the company's location in France, Kineis Killed the Raid IoT Star, and ICE AIS Baby. Today's mission has been dubbed IoT for you and me, and that leaves just one more upcoming mission to be named. But you'll have to wait and see what the Kineis team have dreamed up for the fifth and final launch. They have booked this as part of a bulk buy deal on Electron.
No matter what the mission name, each liftoff is spectacular, and that sight of Electron pierced in the sky never gets old. For today's mission, there are once again 5 satellites inside Electron's fairing. They're headed to a 647-kilometer orbit at an inclination of 97 degrees. Each of the 5 satellites will deploy from the payload plate on Electron's kick stage at staggered intervals. This is to ensure they settle into their own distinct orbits. That moment of deployment will occur around an hour and 6 minutes after liftoff. So, while we wait for the countdown, let's take a closer look at what Kineis' constellation enables.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here. We are at L-15 minutes, 37 seconds, and counting till launch of the fourth of 5 dedicated missions for Kineis. And we saw the views there of the launch site. Looks like a nice day in New Zealand, ready for today's flight. As always, if you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. And we are excited to be doing that. Catching up on some of your guys' questions in the chat. Princess says Electron looks so slick. It really, really does. It's a nice, clean one there. The only, Angie, how much does a U.S. launch license cost them? That's a really good question. I mean, it's paperwork. I'm not sure we actually have a set number for it. It's more like you have to achieve all of these milestones, and they have to kind of jump through these hoops to get to that point. So it's not that it's necessarily like a fee that you have to pay. It's more like you have to make sure you're able to check all the boxes to get to that point. So something interesting there. Tom Ray, yesterday it sounded like SLS is coming to the end. If I hear it from, Alfimo, certain about it. So yeah, Tom, we're actually working on a story on that to put out today or tomorrow. But yeah, Boeing has internally started talking to their employees about how things would wind down with NASA looking to possibly end the SLS program. So it is not official. The big orange rocket's still set to fly next fall, like not this fall, but the next one. But Boeing is obviously hearing things, and they are preparing their employees for what that would look like if they were to shut down the SLS program. And why would you have those conversations unless that looks like the writing on the walls or they've been told something? So I can't confirm that, Tom. That is something going around right now, and we'll have to see when NASA makes an official statement. They haven't made anything as of yet. I wouldn't expect them to rush into that statement, but I have a feeling we probably won't hear anything until we have the new NASA administrator, and then it'll fall to that NASA administrator and his department and teams to make that decision. So make sure you stay tuned for those updates. Catching up on the chat, Mustafa, next Starship test launch. They moved the booster. I found out today to the pad last night. It is up on the OLM, so if they really are moving fast timelines, we could be just a couple of weeks away, which is super exciting. Let's listen in to Mission Control.
A few kilometers back from the launch pad itself. This team is typically monitoring ground systems and the range exclusion zone. Our other team of operators, which you can see on the left side of your screen, are based right here in Mission Control, which is one of several that we operate. They are typically monitoring vehicle systems, payload health, and other factors like weather. Let's listen in for their calls as they work towards the pole, led by Launch Director Paula Tares Serralonga.
Tour stations LD in Mission Core proceeding with a go-no-go sequence stage.
Stages go.
Avionics.
Avionics is go.
GNC.
GNC's go.
Vcon.
Vcon is go.
T1.
T1 is go.
GC.
GC's go.
PLS,
PLS is go.
RSO,
RSO is go.
MET,
Met is go.
MM,
MMs go.
LD sub,
LD SEP is go.
go no go sequence complete. We are T minus 11 minutes 21 seconds and counting. We are go for terminal count auto sequence starting at T minus 10 minutes. From this time, the 3-word hold procedure is in effect.
You heard it, folks. We are go for launch, and the count is proceeding. We're at T minus 10 minutes until liftoff. Now, if you've been watching Electron launches for a while, you know that we often have an availability window in which to lift off the pad on launch day. Typically, this is 2 to 4 hours long, and it gives us the flexibility to select the perfect liftoff time on the day based on optimal weather conditions. Today's mission, like all the Kineis launches before it, is a little different because it requires an instantaneous liftoff. That time is dictated by customer requirements, which is a benefit of flying dedicated on Electron. By having complete control over the launch time, our customers can ensure their spacecraft get deployed at exactly the right time and to exactly the right location. So for today's launch, that means it lifts off at precisely 9:43 a.m. local time, or it doesn't go. If we did need to stand down for any reason, we'd come back another day to hit that liftoff time.
Today is all about launch, but as we like to say around here, there are more than just rockets in this lab. As Electron progresses through the count, let's take a look at some of the other exciting missions our team have been enabling. Right now, a RocketLab designed and built spacecraft is orbiting Earth. It is supporting a capsule for Vada Space Industries, which is a microgravity-enabled life sciences company. They process materials in orbit and return them to Earth.
Vada's W2 mission is supported by a RocketLab Pioneer spacecraft that provides power, communications, propulsion, and attitude control to Vada's 120-kilogram capsule. Inside that capsule are some innovative payloads, including a spectrometer from the Air Force Research Laboratory. The capsule also employs a heat shield with a thermal protection system developed in collaboration with NASA's Ames Research Center. These payloads are in addition to Vada's expanded pharmaceutical reactor, which will increase the capability and capacity for pharmaceutical processing on orbit.
Following the payload processing phase in orbit, RocketLab spacecraft will guide and position Vada's capsule for deorbit. This will enable a hypersonic re-entry and recovery at the Coonabar Test Range in South Australia. Let's take a look back at where our journey with Vada started.
And if you're just joining us, we are at L minus 8 minutes, 20 seconds and counting till launch. And in traditional RocketLab fashion, they're playing a video while we're in terminal count. But great to see insight into their factories and developments from some of these other missions as they continue to expand their capabilities and helping more customers get to low Earth orbit and beyond. At L minus 8 minutes and counting, they are green across the board. They had a go for terminal count at that T minus 10 minute mark. I know it's a question that comes up often, so I'll throw out the answer there. Why is there T minus on their clock and L minus on ours? That is because most countdowns actually have two countdowns. The T minus is an operational one, and that clock can actually stop if needed, and then make sure they've got certain things done, and then it can resume the count. The L minus is your real world time. So that means, you could have T minus 4 minutes and holding, but have L minus 72 hours type of thing. But we don't have that today. Both clocks are synced, as it is an instantaneous launch window. So as they said, if for any reason there's a hold called on the net, that would be the end of today's opportunity. But we're hopeful that we won't have that, and that's in just over 7 minutes. We will have liftoff from New Zealand.
Our second for Vada and a third Pioneer spacecraft has just been delivered to Vandenberg Space Force Base for launch in the coming weeks. It is a very exciting time to be a part of our space systems team. If you want to design, build, and operate missions like this one, check out the careers page on our website for all the latest open roles. In the meantime, follow VADA and RocketLab on X for real-time W2 mission updates.
While our spacecraft are hard at work on orbit, we're making big progress on the ground too, particularly when it comes to Neutron and its launch pad in Wallops, Virginia. Right now, on your screen is a live view of Launch Complex 3, located in the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport within NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. It sits alongside the much smaller pad for Electron and HASTE, but there are, of course, quite a few key differences. The first is the most obvious. It's much, much bigger. Electron stands at just 18 meters tall, whereas Neutron is more than twice that at over 40 meters tall and up to 7 meters in diameter. Recently, Neutron's launch mount was installed ahead of the first launch, and you can really see the sense of scale from the people standing nearby versus Electron's launch mount next door at LC2.
Now, if you are familiar with our launch pads at LC1 and 2 for Electron, you will know that they feature a strong back to hold Electron in place vertically ahead of launch. Neutron's pad at LC3, however, will not feature a strong back. Instead, Neutron's landing legs will be held down by the launch mount itself. Each hold down is designed for a compression force of 2.1 meganewtons and a tension force of 2.1 meganewtons. Other recent additions to LC3 include 2 enormous LN2 vaporizers. These will be used to supply gaseous nitrogen for the vacuum and environmental conditioning system for Neutron when it's on the pad. And with that, the large infrastructure items are done and dusted at LC3. Now it is a case of connecting all systems together and running them through a vigorous test and commissioning phase as we count down to Neutron's inaugural flight later this year.
Speaking of countdowns, we are just T-minus 4 minutes before liftoff at LC1 for today's Electron mission. Here's what you can expect once those 9 Rutherford engines ignite, kicking off our 59th trip to space. Electron's journey to orbit takes just 9 minutes, followed by payload deployment just over an hour into the mission. It starts with the fiery business of liftoff. Fiery business. Shortly after this, just shy of 2.5 minutes into flight, we'll have burned through all the liquid oxygen and kerosene in our first stage, so those 9 Rutherford engines will shut down. Stage 1 and 2 then separate, and the single Rutherford engine on our second stage ignites to continue the mission onto orbit. Next, the fairing separates, exposing those 5 Kineis satellites to space, ready for deployment.
And since Rutherford uses an electric motor to power its propellant pumps rather than a traditional gas turbine, Electron carries batteries on board to power those pumps. Our engineers and designers devised a very clever system of ridding ourselves of those batteries once they are depleted. This saves mass on the way to orbit. It is a process that we call battery hot swap. It allows us to switch to a fresh set of batteries mid-flight and is a milestone that takes place around 6.5 minutes into flight. From there, the second stage engine finally shuts down at 9 minutes into flight, and that's when the kick stage separates from that second stage and settles into a coast phase around Earth for around 40 minutes. The final phase is orbit circularization and payload deployment. About 52 minutes after liftoff, the tiny 3D printed Curie engine on the kick stage will ignite to circularize its orbit and shut down just before all 5 of those satellites are deployed in sequence to their final homes in space. All of that will take place in just 2 minutes from now. As we enter the final count, Electron will enter the auto sequence. This is when the vehicle takes over control and prepares for liftoff. Let's hand it over to the operators in mission control to listen in on that sequence.
And confirm all expected primary flight computer ASCOs are green.
Confirmed.
Clear call for auto sequence start at T-minus 2 minutes. LDs go for launch.
Vehicles fill in internal power. AFTS is green and enabled for flight.
Box load is complete. System is in recirculation. Anti-geysering is disabled.
Stage 1 and Stage 2 tanks are pressed for flight.
High flow dome purge is enabled.
T-minus 20 seconds and counting. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
Click the power safely to launch pad.
Beginning the turbo.
Stage 1 propulsion nominal.
IoT for you and me is on its way to space. Electron has lifted off from the pad at Launch Complex 1 and has commenced its 9-minute journey to orbit. The vehicle has cleared the pad, so next up is max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is the moment in flight when Electron experiences peak structural load. Let's listen in for that call out from Mission Control.
Cleared max Q.
And that's the call we're looking for. Electron has successfully cleared max Q. We're now at 15 kilometers in altitude and traveling at over 2,200 kilometers an hour. Up next is a particularly busy time in flight. Electron will go through main engine cutoff, or MECO, followed by stage separation and then second stage ignition. Having depleted all the propellant in the first stage, we don't need to carry what is essentially a giant empty fuel tank the rest of the way to orbit. So we jettison the first stage and continue the rest of the mission with just the stage 2. Let's listen in for those calls.
Stage 1 propulsion holding nominal. Stand by for MECO in approximately 30 seconds.
$15 seconds till staging.
Entering burnout detect mode.
MECO confirmed.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stage 2 ignition confirmed.
There we have it, successful MECO, stage separation and second stage ignition confirmed. Electron's second stage is now continuing the mission to orbit with those 5 Kineis satellites attached to the kick stage. Very soon we can dispense of the fairing that has been protecting those satellites from the intense conditions of launch. The two halves of the fairing will split and fall away, exposing the satellite to space in preparation for deployment. Those are the magic words. Electron's fairing has been jettisoned. We are now at 3 minutes into flight with less than 6 minutes remaining in this second stage burn.
HVB discharge holding nominal.
With Electron's fairings gone, the payloads are now exposed to the vacuum of space. But we're doing things a little differently with Neutron. Neutron's captive fairing will stay attached to stage 1, and our second stage will be deployed from within. The fairing halves are large and complex composite structures, so we prefer to keep hold of them for rapid reuse of stage 1.
Stage 2 propulsion.
Some stunning views of Earth there from space as we head out over the South Pacific Ocean. T plus 4 minutes into flight, and Electron is soaring at around 11,000 kilometers per hour, passing through 180 kilometers in altitude.
So far, Electron has progressed through a successful liftoff, stage separation, second stage ignition, and fairing separation. These are all pretty standard phases in flight for all launch vehicles, but the next milestone is one that's unique to RocketLab. We call it battery hot swap. The batteries powering the electric motors driving the propeller pumps on the engine deplete over time, and when they're drained, we eject them and swap to a fresh set for the rest of the journey to orbit. Watch closely and you might just see those batteries slip out of sight once jettisoned.
Throttling down.
Battery jettison confirmed.
Bye-bye batteries. That is a successful hot swap. We are now around 6 minutes into flight at an altitude of about 206 kilometers. We have sailed through most of the key milestones for this launch, with just a few more to come, including SECO, or second engine cutoff. At that point, the Rutherford engine will throttle down, eventually coming to a stop in preparation for kick stage separation. That moment will mark the end of the first mission phase, and it's coming up at 9 minutes into flight.
AFTS has saved.
So what you're looking at on your screen is our vacuum optimized Rutherford engine. It might look simple, but there's a lot of systems keeping everything running smoothly. Each engine, sea level and vacuum, has a dedicated engine controller which performs local closed-loop control computations for that engine. That involves sensor sampling, processing, and also position control of engine valves and actuators. This includes the thrust vector controllers, or TVCs, which gimbal the engine to give us direction. However, each of these engine controllers are themselves centrally commanded by the flight computer, which performs the overall guidance, navigation, and control for the entire vehicle.
Entered burnout detect mode.
You might remember earlier in the show we mentioned that Rutherford would begin to throttle down for shutdown. Well, we're now fast approaching that point. Soon you'll hear an operator call out entered burnout detect mode, and you'll know that SECO is close.
SECO confirmed.
Stage separation confirmed.
And just like that, Electron's Rutherford engine has shut down. That is a successful SECO and kick stage separation. The kick stage, still carrying the 5 satellites for Kineis, is now in a transfer orbit. It will coast around Earth for around 40 minutes. After this, the Curie engine on the kick stage will ignite for a short burn to circularize our orbit in preparation for payload deployment. While we wait for that payload deployment, now's a good time to think about whether you'd like your work days to look like this as well.
Currently, we're hiring across our launch and space systems teams in the US, Canada, and New Zealand. So, discover what a career at RocketLab might look like for you.
If you walk into any...
And there we go, at T plus 10 minutes into flight, the Electron mission well on its way with those 5 Kineis satellites. We are staying live through deployment. Deployment expected 1 hour, 6 minutes, 34 seconds into flight. So we'll be answering your guys' comments and questions. But if you are heading off, make sure to engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage. And make sure you join us over on the TLP Discord. That's where our community hangs out in between streams. Last thing, and then we'll listen back into RocketLab Mission Control, is don't forget there is still time for you to be able to get your name aboard our own mission to the moon, LUNEX 1. That is getting ready to launch later this year on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy. So head over to tlpnetwork.com/LUNEX1. Submit your name there, and you can upgrade your payload if you want to include a photo or a video of you, your family, your friends, your dogs, your best friend, or the person you don't like. Send them all to the moon, and makes a really great gift to yourself or gift to friends. So definitely check that out. We'll be, of course, bringing full coverage of that launch from here on the Space Coast later this year. And we're super excited to be flying on Astrobotics Griffin lunar lander, its first ever mission of the Griffin lander to the south pole of the moon. So we're going to be right there where the future moon bases are being established, and we're super excited for that. Excited to finally get to talk about it more, confirm our payload, the rocket, Falcon Heavy, all of that. So definitely stay tuned to more updates and check that out. We'll listen back into RocketLab Mission Control here for a moment after this video, where they're trying to get you guys to join their team. An amazing company. We've talked to many people that work at RocketLab, and they all really do enjoy it, and they're doing some incredible things around the world and off-planet. We will be staying live through payload deployment, so we hope that you'll stay with us, and you can send in your questions in the chat by tagging at the launch pad. CatPuro21 is this rocket reusable? Electron is technically. They have recovered them a couple of times. I do not believe they have reflown a booster yet. They have reflown, I believe, an engine, though. So they are working to that. Neutron, their next generation vehicle, will be a reusable launch vehicle. So exciting to see that. Let's listen in to RocketLab Mission Control for a quick little update, and we'll answer more of your questions through the coast phase. So make sure you're sending those in by tagging us at the launch pad, and let's listen in to Mission Control.
All of that and more to look forward to as part of the RocketLab team. So jump on our website to browse those open roles and apply today. For now, though, we're going to take a short break and be back with you in around 50 minutes for payload deployment. We'll see you then.
And as I said, we'll be staying live here with their graphic tracking the current location and ground stations as they continue towards payload deployment, set for 1 hour, 6 minutes, 34 seconds after liftoff for that. So we're super excited that. Joanne, I hope I'm saying that right. I think it's Joanne. Can I post pics on Discord? My son is taking me to Vandenberg at the end of the month for my first live launch. That's if it's not delayed or fogged in. Yeah, absolutely. That's what the Discord's for. We would love to have anyone in this community. If you see photos of launches or you get to see something cool in the space industry, put it in there. That's where we want our community to feel safe to hang out, ask questions in between streams. So definitely do that. We're looking at getting some of our team out there, hopefully for that launch from Vandenberg at the end of the month, as you said, if it's not delayed or completely fogged in. So we'll definitely, hopefully, maybe you'll see one of our team out there. That is awesome. Lucy, thanks so much for becoming a Lunar Explorer. I appreciate that. I know I saw somebody else. There was a few of those today that also Monty became a Suborbital Explorer. Thank you so much. We also had Steven a little bit earlier as well. So thank you so much to all of you becoming members. That all goes into helping us expand our coverage, get our team to different places around the world to bring you on-site coverage as we continue to try to expand our coverage of this incredible new global kind of space race to low Earth orbit, the moon, and onto Mars. Ginger, I hope you are Ginger at TLP Zach. I hope you are fully recovered from the illness you had earlier this year. Take care, okay? Keep up the wonderful work. I appreciate that. Thanks for checking in. Yeah, I'm doing good. Still on meds. Will be for possibly many, many months, if not the rest of my life. But we're off the strongest of them, and able to walk without a walker and do that type of stuff. Go back out in the field with the launches. So. Yeah, definitely getting back to it. Try not to push too hard, but I appreciate that. If all of you are wondering what that is about, there is a GoFundMe link, and you can head to our social media to read a little bit more. But you know, almost left the planet, not to space in December. But glad to be here, able to cover this new space race. Astrocozy, good to see you. Welcome. Chaz, 2 launches in less than 2 hours. Thanks, Zach and TLP crew. Yeah, it was an awesome day. Huge shout out to all of our mods that were in the chat. I know we had Lewis and David and Amy and Matt, and I'm probably missing someone because I'm not always looking at the chat. So I appreciate you all being on there for today's coverage. Catching up on your guys' questions. Chaz, you sound much stronger, Zach. It could be that, or it could be the sugar soda that I had like 10 minutes before the stream. I'll say it's both, but I appreciate it. I definitely feel better. You know, I still wouldn't say 100. It goes in waves, but I'm definitely nowhere near where I was at Christmas. I was going back through like old photos and videos that I was sending to the crew with updates, and I was like, wow, I was really bad. I was oof. But glad that we are doing better. You guys can keep sending in those questions and we'll answer them, or they can be comments about the latest space news as well, and we'll be answering those. Catching up on what you guys have said in the chat. Vinsu, RocketLab is a solid one, but they need more contracts. They've got a lot of, I believe they've got quite a few contracts for Neutron. They have some contracts for Electron. It all comes down to what the payloads are and what the companies want to pay. And ultimately, you know, a lot of flights choose to opt for SpaceX, especially with their transporter and bandwagon missions, where they could launch something that could launch on Electron could possibly also launch on a transporter mission. And I don't know the exact numbers, but definitely if you know you've got 140 payloads on a transporter mission, it'll definitely be a lot cheaper, most likely, than an Electron flight if you divide up the cost there. So, you know, it all depends what companies want and the availability. Electron can probably launch faster than if you called RocketLab and SpaceX today, you probably could get an Electron sooner than a Falcon 9 for like a transporter Falcon 9. Joanne, thank you so much for the $5 super chat there. Thanks for all the launches and great commentary. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. We will hopefully see you in the Discord. Definitely going to try to be in there a little bit more. Stay tuned on Tuesday. We have a Falcon 9 launch, and we're going to try to do something different for that launch. Not necessarily a pad shot. But I might be hosting from somewhere a little more different and exciting for me. But we're going to see if it works. We're not entirely sure. If I can't get internet connection, I apologize, and we'll get clips and stuff up for the launch. But we're going to try something a little bit different on Tuesday, just as a special little thing. So I won't be in the studio that day. So catching up on your guys' comments. Paul G, thank you for these, and cool to hear you then, since such health stuff. Yeah, it was an interesting December. That's for sure. Every other time I go to Starbase, I seem to come home and get ill. Not that it's a Starbase thing, it just seems to be a pattern. Mind you, the first time I went was in the pandemic, so, I mean, everybody was, so. Stealth Mode's been a member for 29 months, thank you so much, appreciate that. No, I recognize the name, been here quite a while. Good to see you. Sean became a solar explorer, thank you so much, Sean, I appreciate that support. All that goes into helping us expand our equipment and get our team out in the field and organize things like Lunex 1. You know, we booked Lunex 1, the mission to the moon, 2 years ago at least. We secured that payload spot, and we're still, 7, 8, 9 months out from launch. So we'll have to see what else we can do. We're excited to do some other missions. We're in the early planning stages of Lunex 2. So if you missed Lunex 1 for some reason, you shouldn't. You still have time to do it. But if you do, there will be another opportunity there. Very similar idea, but just making it really easy to access, send photos, videos, makes it a little bit of fun as we cover all these launches, and makes it a little more special being like, my photo is on that rocket. So it's probably going to be an emotional day standing here knowing, actually, where is it? I can hold it up. I should have done this earlier. I didn't think about this. I haven't been able to do this before. My camera's not turned on. If you're in the Discord, I will post a picture of the card that is going to the moon. I'll have my camera on one of these streams on the next one, and we can show it. But I'll post a picture on the Discord so you guys can see the chip there. But cool that some of our team's getting to see it, take pictures with it, and hold something that they're going to blast off on a Falcon Heavy and then go to the moon, hopefully. The first lunar lander by Astrobotic didn't exactly make it to the moon. Well, it made it around the moon, and then it came back to Earth and crashed into the atmosphere. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we make it to the moon. Hey, Me, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thanks for modding and being part of the team. Love being here, and you're awesome. I appreciate you. Sergeant Creepy, what service do RocketLab use to provide these views of their rockets? Animation. Really good animation. I wish this was a live view, but really, really good animations. They've upgraded them quite a bit from what they used to look like, and it's really cool. It's neat seeing the downlink zones as well, where they have their communications, so really neat to see. Mike the Spike, you booked what? A payload to the moon, and the Nightbot right on time. There is the link if you'd like to send your name. It is free to do so. If you want to send a photo, it's, I think, $5. If you want to send a video, it's a little bit more, just because we are limited in space for it. Most companies don't make this size of data card to be able to fit onto the lander, so weight-wise and size-wise, we're limited. So, yeah. We're also going to throw some other things on there that are special to me and my family, so it's going to be kind of a time capsule of TLP. Some of it we'll probably put maybe we should put the first TLP broadcast. Maybe we'll include the last TLP broadcast before we send the payload, some of our favorite broadcasts. Put that all on there. That's great having you all here. If you haven't yet, though, join us over on the TLP Discord. I'm going to take a quick commentary break here on the stream. But what I'll do is I think I might go hop over into our live comms on the Discord, see if some of you are on there, and then we will be back right here on the stream. We'll be keeping these live tracking views up. as we await payload deployment, T plus 1 hour, 6 minutes, 34 seconds. So stay with us on here or join me over on the TLP Discord as we continue to monitor the 59th Electron mission carrying 5 Kineis satellites to low Earth orbit. Stay with us.
lifted off for the 59th time, carrying 5 satellites for French IoT constellation operator Kineis. For the past 50 minutes or so, those satellites have been coasting around Earth attached to Electron's kick stage, ready for payload deployment. About 10 minutes ago, we actioned our circularization burn, which was conducted by the 3D printed Curie engine. That engine is designed and manufactured by our team to provide in-space propulsion. It enables us to raise or lower orbits and conduct plane changes. It basically ensures that our customer satellites get to very precise destinations, often within single digits of the target. This is a pretty rare feat in spaceflight.
The satellites for today's mission will deploy in a very specific sequence. First up is a single satellite attached to the top of the kick stage, followed by the other 4 in pairs from opposite sides of the payload plate. Now, let's throw it back to the brains in mission control to listen out for those calls now.
Kineis 1 deployment confirmed.